Morning.
Sir. Morning, sir. Morning, sir.
Good afternoon.
I'm very sorry, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Have a seat, Mr. Varghese.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So, as I can see, Mr. Varghese, you are from Kottayam, Kerala,
That's right, sir.
and your optional is Commerce and Accounting.
Yes, sir.
And you have done your BA Commerce in Accountancy, Management, Accounting, Corporate Law, Tax, and you are working in Microland
Yes, sir.
as Associate Manager. And you have taken some attempts also earlier in the
That's right.
CSE. And your first preference is Indian Foreign Service.
That's right, sir.
Second is IAS. Third is IPS. And regarding your hobbies, as I can see, it's a long list of hobbies as well as achievements. So your debate is one, okay, and then of course public speaking. Black belt Shotokan karate. Is it any particular form of karate?
Yes,
Or-
sir. It was actually developed during the Second World War time. It actually assimilated a lot of the karate the karate theory that was there and popularized and made into a teaching practice.
Okay, all right. Then traveling, hikes in Western Ghats. Okay, all right. Khasi Hills, Himalayas, weight training. So you basically weight training, does it include weight lifting only or anything else also?
Exercises with weights, sir.
Exercise with weights. And knowledge sharing sessions at work. So what exactly is the knowledge sharing sessions at work that you do? Organizing knowledge sharing, lectures,
Yes, sir. Our
presentations,
yes, in our CFO wants.
workshops.
That's right, sir.
All right. And writing poems for friends and family
Yes,
in
sir.
Hindi, English, or in southern languages.
In English, sir, usually as a birthday gift.
That's it. All right. And video blogger at NDTV, Metro Nation.
I did a video blog once, sir, during my time in college for NDTV Metro Nation.
Okay. And dramatics also is one of it. Okay. So, Mr. Varghese, first of all, I would like to know Kerala, a huge amount of migration takes place to the Middle East. And why is it typically from Kerala only that such huge migration takes place? And the male folk, particularly, they too go towards the Middle East. Is it on account of very, very good remunerative wages that they get? And the second question related to that is that then the women folk who are left here and they send, of course, their earnings there. So, how do they keep themselves busy?
Awesome. So to address the first point of your question as to why Kerala sends a lot of migrants to the Gulf countries, in fact, from my own experience, my parents were migrants to the Gulf, and I did the first half of my life in Muscat, Oman. The main reason where this started was in 1970s. There was an oil boom in the Gulf, and they didn't have enough skills or population to support their development. And Kerala was a good market to pull in workers because Kerala also did not have enough employment opportunities for the educated youth. And this was a ready market for skills to be employed. And so you saw a huge boom in the 80s and 90s of.
So, not many industries also.
That's correct. So Kerala's industrial development is lagging a little.
So, the main industry is tourism industry.
So the main industry in Kerala is actually the services industry. Kerala has a very strong IT sector. Its transport industry and its tourism industry contribute about 65% of the GDP of Kerala. And so coming back to your question as to remuneration of the migrants, this depends on the skill actually. You can see my mother was a nurse. A nurse going from Kerala to the Gulf earns probably 5 to 6x more than a nurse in Kerala. Whereas there are also blue collar workers who actually go there and are probably not remunerated real greatly, but yes, they see it as more lucrative than the salaries they earn in India. And as to the women folks who are left behind when only the husbands go to the Gulf areas, yes, sometimes we can see that in Kerala, a lot of economic development has happened on the backbone of only these remittances, and its own productive capacity has not been developed at times. So women are sometimes not employed.
Okay. Now coming to the eastern part of this country, so the West Bengal. Now West Bengal, something happened some time back in relation to a civil servant, and that led to a kind of cold war between the state government and the central government, and it resulted into something, a very important change which happened, which for the civil services. Now, what was that, and what was the situation? Why it developed, and do you think that civil servant was right in his actions or not?
Yes, sir. So the incident you're probably referring to is when one of the All India Service officers from West Bengal was called to back to the center for a central deputation, and he declined and said that he would want to stay back in the state itself. Now, because of this, the center passed regulations regarding, while the All India Services is has the practice of a home cadre associated to this to the officer, and then a central deputation whenever the center calls him on with the state's consent. Because of this issue, the center issued regulations saying that we can depute officers to the center to fill our vacancies without such consent from the state. And as far as the right or wrong of his action is concerned, so there are a lot of central vacancies that we're seeing, and the concept of deputation itself was created so that these state assigned officers can also fill in these positions at the center. And so I think in the interest of administration running efficiently countrywide, maybe this officer also should have agreed to the central call of deputation, or there should have been collaborative federalism between the state government and the central government to decide on the future and of
So
such
it led
cases.
to number one, another contention, bone of contention between state and the center. Sort of, it was having an effect on the
That's
federal
correct,
structure
sir.
of the country, particularly in the opposition ruled states.
That's right, sir.
Okay. So do you think, one action which was done by the Chief Secretary of West Bengal, that resulted into an overall amendment, amendment in the All India Service Rules. So the action of the Chief Secretary at that time, would you advocate that what was correct, or was it not?
So I would say in a country like India that functions on the backbone of strong federalism, any decision that affects the center and the states should be taken with a little more discussion and some more coming to the same table and agreeing on such matters, rather than one-sided decisions which then
No,
cause.
I was talking about the action of the Chief Secretary. He was to make a presentation before the Prime Minister, and he left in between with the Chief Minister.
I'm afraid, sir, I
You're not
do not
aware.
recall this exact point. I'm
Thank
sorry,
you.
sir.
Ashok.
Sam, you are working in an excellent position, associate manager in micro land at a good salary. Why do you want to leave that and come to civil service?
So for me, very honestly, it has always been what I do with my life has been more than the money. It should be more than the money. And something that started as a mere fascination when I saw the ambassadors to Oman in my childhood, then right after my CA developed into a keen ambition to make a more meaningful contribution to the world around me by being part of India's diplomatic machinery.
Okay. So your first choice is IFS.
That's right.
That's why. Okay. Now, very recently, this bilateral trade pact with UAE, between UAE and India, it has come into force. What are its salient points?
So the trade agreement removes duties on a large portion of more than 90% of the trade between UAE and India. And UAE has already been one of the top three trade destinations of India. Along with this, there are also provisions to make services migration of professionals more easier between these countries. And these are two of the points I can recall immediately, sir.
But how does India benefit from it? Because normally the perception is that people go to UAE countries to buy things from there?
So one way, there are two ways India would benefit from this. One, India's exports now become more lucrative in the UAE because there are no import duties on them. Second, we import oil from the UAE, and it also gives them more impetus to trade with us. So I guess when you remove the duties aspect of trade between two countries, it immediately increases the size of the volume.
Okay, which other countries do we have bilateral trade pact?
So yes, we recently also signed a bilateral trade pact with Australia, and we've had traditionally trade pacts with Japan, South Korea, Sri Lanka, Mauritius. These are some of the countries I can remember.
Okay. Now, in e-commerce, the government of India is now, coming out with a new initiative of its own. What is that?
So I believe it is the ONDC initiative, or the Open National Digital Commerce Initiative, where they want to create an open source software for e-commerce to use. Today, there's a lot of contention that the algorithms used by the Amazon and Flipkart and such majors create an environment where there's no transparency, and so both the customers and competitors are undercut. So they want a software which runs on an open source platform, and customers and competitors can see the algorithms that run behind this to ensure that there is no unfair cartelization or violation of the
The
competition.
intention is very good, genuine. But attached to e-commerce, a good e-commerce platform, are several other things like good logistics and good, warehousing, timely supplies, refunds, returns, and so many other things. In the government sector, will it be possible to, deliver that kind of services?
So this is true. There is a contradiction here that private sector has achieved efficiencies that will be very hard to emulate, and also we see it in all sectors where the government is ready to encourage the efficiencies of the private sector through disinvestment. But along with this, we also need to balance the side where the profit-making motive of private sector uh, uh, should be with fairness and through good corporate governance. So I think these initiatives of the government are towards that sustainable profit making.
Yes, Sam. I like to ask you what you think personally is a more chair-bound job.
So in comparison to other services, I believe it is as disconnected from the chair as other services, because especially in today's increasing atmosphere of nationalism, and on the other side where we have global problems that can only be combated with collaboration and cooperation with countries, I think it's a time for the diplomatic machinery of India to not be sitting at all because of the amount of work that is there to be done in this
But
space.
what kind of work it is? I mean, that would involve travel and negotiations and discussions. But
Yes.
again, most of the time, conferencing and sitting and talking, isn't it?
So there is a lot of conferences and sitting and discussions among
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
But I think the aim of these discussions are to find convergences when two countries are
No,
sitting.
no, of course. I'm not doubting that at all. What I am saying is, I mean, normally, what is the impression you have that whether it is more chair bound as compared to other services? So you answered that. Let's spend some time on your hobbies. Apparently, there's a large list, and see how keenly you are pursuing some of them. Which one are you pursuing now? I mean, out of all these listed here, active traveling, hikes, and then training, weight training. These are all very important hobbies and interests.
So, sir, the hikes to the Khasi Hills was just 2 months ago, 2 to 3 months ago, and weight training is also something which I do on a regular basis.
How many days
So
in a week?
4 days a week at least.
4 days a week.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I see. It must be pretty tough. How much time you spend in the gym?
So I don't do it at the gym because
have
of
it
the
at
exams.
home.
I have weights at home.
Okay.
And while there was some slack that I showed during the written exams of mains, after that I've been doing 4 days a week.
Okay. Can you just tell me what are some thumb rules regarding weight training and weightlifting?
Sure, sir.
Yeah.
So the first rule would be to warm up
Very good.
and stretch before
Yes.
every session.
Yeah.
The second rule is that form is more important than the quantity of weights. The technique that you're using is more important. So you start slow with lesser weights, correct your technique, and then move into higher.
Not your.
What's
Don't
that?
say your.
I'm sorry, sir.
Yeah, one's or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One finds his rhythm
Yeah.
and corrects his technique as he moves in.
Yeah.
Third one is to also have a cool down session after one is done working out. And of course, this all needs to go with a protein-rich diet in weight
So
training.
that's right. I mean, these are of course very, very appropriately you summed up. But there is something more important regarding weightlifting, and that relates to the postural part of it, and it's very crucial during the weight training. What is that?
So may I have a second to think about it?
Sure.
So one of the things I pay attention to while weight training is the strain on my neck and my back. So I ensure that the position that I'm putting my neck in while doing various exercises or my back in is not in a way that creates strain for them.
Yeah. So what is the ideal position for back when you are lifting weight?
Sir, I'm afraid I'm not aware of that.
Okay, not to worry, not to worry. About something about Kerala, which has a very rich tradition of peace and being always leading and number one in most of the time, isn't it? Always number one. State Kerala all the time. Now, but apparently today it is facing some serious social problems. Could you sum up some of these, and then we talk about it later.
Sure, sir. Some of the problems that I can mention on the top of my head is one, though Kerala has been number one, as you said, on a lot of social indicators and the SDG indicator also recently, we're lagging back in industrial progress, because of which we're looking at connectivity solutions like the Kerala line, the Silver Lane project.
Okay,
is
next.
The next one is a spate of political killings that have politically motivated killings that have happened in the last 2 months. The third problem that we see is the sufferings of some of the tribal communities in some of the parts of Kerala.
Okay. There are some more important ones.
So I'm afraid I'm not able to.
Unemployment,
Yes, sir.
very serious.
That is
Despite, that it is richly, migrating outside and
That is
within.
And in
But
fact, the unemployment of the educated youth is higher in Kerala than other states, which is
yeah.
a Kerala specific problem.
And it has been a very, as I said earlier, rich traditions of so many communities living within a state. But it's probably has now a lot of stories about communal tensions also. What is causing this?
So the communal tensions in Kerala, as you see in other states, are
As we see in others.
are caused. One of the problems, like I said, leads back to another issue that we just discussed, which is unemployment. An idle mind is a devil's playground. So unemployed youth.
No. I don't see any connection between unemployment. I mean, communal tensions across various communities.
So another reason is the environment in Kerala is also very politicized, with as in the level of education of each individual in Kerala every person, as I have noticed, reads a newspaper and has strong political opinions on almost every issue. And there has also been a history of of communist revolutions and violence related to that in Kerala, and some of the spirit still persists, which leads to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sam, that's your name, huh? Sam, just tell me, how is it that a majority of nurses in our countries, various hospitals, they come from Kerala? What is the basic cause?
So one of the reasons is the universalization of education in Kerala. The education of all people, of all citizens, of all inhabitants, including women, was pushed very well since post-independence governments itself in Kerala. And given that the level of education is so prevalent among the women, they go around the country wherever they're able to find employment, and this is one of the reasons. Also, the Kerala culture, which is acceptable to moving outside their states and mixing with other communities, is also one of these smaller points related to that.
Okay. You stated a little while back that Kerala is not adequately industrialized.
Right, sir.
It has got some industries only in the service sector.
Right, sir.
Is it because of the labor union?
So trade militancy and the politicization of labor issues has been a problem we see in Kerala for a while. Nokukuli is something that we all know about, which has recently we saw even Kitex, a huge manufacturer in Kerala, leaving Kerala to go and set up in Telangana because labor issues was making their operations less cost efficient. So yes, labor issues has been dampener in Kerala, and we are looking to solve this problem as well.
Is the leftist government, which has been there for many, many years, also responsible for this? They don't encourage industrialization?
So I wouldn't say that the government is responsible for the lack of industrialization. Kerala has its own specific fact pattern, the eco-fragility of land, these labor issues, which the government has also passed laws against, like Nokukuli has now been banned. And due to such issues is why industrialization has been lagging behind, and it's being focused on now even in this budget. So I wouldn't say the government would be responsible. Sir.
Okay. You have opted IFS as your number one choice.
That's right.
How do you see the emergence of a new world order?
So what we're seeing today in the world is that localized power and power residing in certain Western world or the Eastern world has now changed into a multipolar world. We see India also growing as from a balancing force to a leading force and taking very strong issue-based and rule-based positions on various issues. Along with this, we see a very interconnected world where a war in Russia and Ukraine can destabilize the entire global economy through, say, the price of oil, the Middle East region suffering from the lack of wheat imports, or these effects. Any justice denied anywhere is felt across the world with today's interconnectedness.
Okay. Having studied in Delhi, SRCC, I trust you are familiar with the Hindi language?
Yes,
You can
sir.
speak?
Haan ji, sir.
So, how do you see the future of Hindi as a national language? This is a burning topic these days.
So, yeah, on that topic, sir, one point comes to mind which I read recently, that language is not a vehicle, language is not a destination, but it is a vehicle. So, while I think that all languages, and including Hindi being a language that developed in our motherland, needs to be encouraged and propagated, I think language and governance should be more of a convenience issue. And based on the legislations passed and the constitutional values, we should ensure that the language policy is such that governance is most efficient, and all languages of both majority and minorities should be protected and encouraged.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, you are from a coastal state.
That's right.
What is what is the term called territorial waters?
So the territorial waters are the waters that extend from the coastline to 12 nautical miles, which belong to which are under the sovereignty of the country that we're referring to.
And what is exclusive economic zone then?
Exclusive economic zone will be, sir, 200 nautical miles, if I'm not wrong, from the coastline, where the country doesn't have sovereignty, but they have access to resources in that part of the oceans, but subject to international laws of the Convention of the Laws of the Seas, etc.
So, what are the creative ways through which the countries have been creating this exclusive economic zone?
So one of the ways that we've seen is we are exploring oil along with other countries in the eastern side of our country. We even have a public sector unit that
No,
has
no,
been.
I am asking. Some countries are trying to expand its EEZ.
That's
Okay,
right.
what are the creative ways of doing it?
So the creative ways of that are of expanding the easy are sometimes, if I'm not wrong, laying claim to disputed islands, which are which say the Paracel and Spratly Islands, which are in the middle of the ocean over there. When they extend claim over that, then your EEZ also gets extended further beyond those waters. So by referring to certain treaties which were passed in history, this is used sometimes to extend your EEZ.
Another way, the way China would have been doing it. How is it doing it in South China Sea? Artificial islands?
So by creating artificial on the Scarborough Shoal, they are creating artificial islands where I believe even landing facilities for their aircrafts are either installed or being looking to be installed.
Did any country violate EEZ recently?
So while I don't remember a recent incident, I remember US warships coming into the region around the Taiwan.
Taiwan. No, in India's.
Oh, in India's
EEZ.
easy. India's easy. I'm not completely.
The US fleet sailed through.
Sailed through. Okay, yeah. They don't. They say that they follow the FLP law of the seas rather than the UNCLOS law of the seas, which allows them freedom to sail through these waters, which is something that China also had an issue with.
Your first choice being IFS. A lot of kids from Kerala, they went and joined the ISIS, even some women in Syria. So, what role can an IFS officer play in checking this kind of movement or this kind of migration of joining the extremist organizations in other countries?
So, based on my limited knowledge of how the embassies operate, I would think an officer in any embassy or a diplomatic posting in a Gulf country should have connects with the community. And when he has connects with community organizations, he'll have his ears to the ground on certain things like this happening. And he can, if you have contacts in the community, they could probably give him messages about such stuff. Or offices can also have a social media wing where they monitor activities on related social media handles that can highlight things like this to you, and then it can be sent back to the ministry in India for further probing and action.
How about liaison with the
Yes,
host countries?
Yes, this is also something which is very important especially for the embassies in the Middle East region, where we have a lot of Indians, where our diaspora, we are always battling for the good conditions of our diaspora, their working conditions. You see passports confiscated sometimes. So we are in constant touch with them, and to ensure that people to people connects are encouraged by ensuring the just treatment of migrant workers.
Your area was part of the Travancore state.
Yes, sir.
In last decade, there's been a lot of talk about the Padmanabh Swami temple. So its goods have been accounted for. Whatever has come to light, what does it speak about the cultural and the trade history of Kerala?
So I believe the final accounts on that, as in the draft accounts which I read last, saw that there was about 1.2 trillion rupees worth of gold in the vaults of the Padmanabha Swami Ayya temple.
What
And
is the archaeological and the historical significance of these findings? I'm not talking about the monetary value.
so I would think that this shows the rich trading history of Kerala.
With,
So,
which
with the Gulf region, which started somewhere in the 3000 BC. They were our main spice. Our spice trade started with the Arab region before the Portuguese even came in. So it shows about that rich spice trade.
only with
tradition.
the Middle East or elsewhere also? There
So-
were certain coins.
So the Harappan, no, not the Harappan. I'm sorry, sir. Coins. So I believe in the Mesopotamian region also, the Middle East and North Africa.
That is Mesopotamia is Middle East,
Yeah,
right?
and North Africa also.
Roman.
Yes,
a
the
huge
Roman-
number of Roman gold
Roman
coins
coin.
have been also.
I'm afraid I missed that point. Yes.
So, okay, last question is SR also said that Kerala had a rich history of all these the Hindus, the Muslims, and the Christians living together for really long time. But recently, this issue of love jihad has really cropped up. In other places, it was say Hindus saying that love jihad is prevalent, but recently in Kerala, a lot of Christian priests and bishops have also come out with these allegations. So, what is the truth? What is the grain of truth behind this? If it really exists, what are the ways to kind of uh, mm, mitigate these circumstances that this does not create enmity between the communities?
So, in my opinion, what is commonly spoken as love jihad, or the idea that is commonly held that men of some religion are trying to entrap women of other religion, is actually a deeper problem which has surfaced because of radicalization that is spreading in a lot of parts of India. So this radicalization that is happening because of a lot of problems, but including the lack of development and proper
So
employment.
is it like completely allegations, or is there some grain of truth also in it?
So there is the radicalization is a clear factual
Not
factual.
radicalization, love jihad per se.
So love jihad is still a disputed terms, as in a disputed finding. There is no clear evidence as to whether I mean the places now it's very loosely used in the community where any marriage inter-community marriage is sometimes termed as love jihad, and in that sense, sir, I think it is not the right way to look at things. But
Any recent case about this you would know from your state? Very recent.
so from my state, a lady was part of the ISIS in
No, not that one. We're not talking about. I was talking about love jihad.
love jihad.
One of the bishops had made allegations, and something happened in the court.
Yeah, sir. I'm not aware of love jihad, but even today, the one of the governing party members spoke about how certain communities, individuals are,
And it happened to a like prominent person's daughter who got married, and the court gave a judgment.
Oh, I'm not
Not
aware,
aware.
sir. I'm afraid
Thank
I'll look into it.
Thank
soon on that.
Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Varghese, we'll take you back to the waiting room for a while.
Sure, sir.
You stay there and we'll call you for your feedback.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Varghese, have a seat.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so Mr. Varghese, when is your interview fixed?
So it's on 19th May.
Oh, that's so you have quite some time with you, 19th of May. Now, this is the first time you'll be appearing at an interview.
That's right, sir.
Okay, all right. How do you think you performed at this mock interview?
So I think it was okay. I mean, there was I felt like one question I didn't understand the demand of the question, and thus I fumbled a little. And I think it could have been better, of course.
Okay. So, Mr. Varghese, first of all, let me say that you are very good in terms of your knowledge and also in terms of your communication and articulation skills. Everything is perfect. Your attitude also is absolutely fine, positive attitudes. And now coming to some of the questions which were asked to you. Now, one thing is that there is a famous adage which says that less is more. So you are very good in communication. You are very good in terms of the answers But since you will be having only 20 minutes at your disposal there, so try to be, the brevity would be the width, you see. So try to keep them succinct, crisp, short, to the point, and bring out the most important part of the answer first. That will be very helpful to you, because you would like to face as many questions as possible. So let's not end up with 2-3 questions only, because long answers would ultimately result. No doubt your answers were absolutely fine, and as I said, your knowledge, your communication skills, both are very good. Your mental alertness was there, your balance of judgment, that was also reflected, because you were able to look into both the pros and cons. Your clarity of thought was very much there, and you were not, at no point of time did we have this feeling that you were trying to bluff. So honesty was reflected in your answers also, and the supplementaries also you were able to take fairly well. So these are all strengths which you possess. And now coming to specific questions which are likely to be, since Indian Foreign Service is your first preference, lot many questions would be asked on that. So then I just to repeat them once again. India and its relation with its neighbors, every neighbor you must prepare very well. The historical background also, the situation which is developing in some of the countries which are adjoining our country, that is the Sri Lanka, that situation, or Pakistan, and also some of the countries where we have had excellent relations earlier, but now they have soured. So we had excellent relation with Nepal, but then there were many pinpricks in between regarding the boundaries, regarding the maps and so on. So you must understand that, and the Myanmar, the junta rule which is there and so on. Then coming to the world order, so Ukraine, Russia, the supply chain which has been disrupted, which has resulted into many problems for this country, which has actually prompted this country to come in line with much stronger emphasis on Atmanirbhar Bharat, because that is going to be the looking inwards. You have to look after that. So that is again a point, that world order, how it is developing, unipolar, multipolar, or bipolar. And then the situation about Pakistan also, you must understand what is the great advantage, geographical location of Pakistan, what are the advantages which Pakistan has. So which country has got a greatest advantage on account of its geography, and which countries do not have. In fact, it is to the contrary, that so geography goes against it. So then of course questions like whether United Kingdom is now lamenting the fact that Brexit. Then question may be whether the US is now lamenting its withdrawal of the forces from Afghanistan. And then of course the sanctions imposed by USA against Russia, and also the threats against India. So the entire world order and United Nations institutions role in various issues. So UNESCO and WHO and so many of them. So all the institutions, you must know whether United Nations is losing its relevance and so on, the International Court of Justice and some of the very prominent judgments which have come. Since IFS is your first preference, naturally these questions are likely to be asked. Simple questions like which part of Russia was sold off to United States and when, and by what price. So Alaska was sold. So all these things, and then of course connected with the sovereignty of the nation, as many questions were asked about the territorial waters and so on, about the South China Sea and so on. Then coming to the India, the national scene. So the question which is normally is likely to be asked is, why do you want to come to the civil services? So you said you were enamored of seeing one of the ambassadors of a foreign country, an Indian ambassador, you say. But that may not be the only reason. You have to justify your answer by taking a course to the functions of the civil service. So civil service has a unique situation, unique in many senses. For example, the very important leadership positions at a very young age, highly responsible, leadership positions. Second is you are a part of the public policy making process. Third is that it gives you much larger canvas to work in. The fourth is a lot of creativity, innovation, and something new which you can do. Fifth is you can do a lot of good to the citizens of this country. So we are basically in a citizen-centric administration. So these are the reasons why civil service attracts you. That the reason which you gave may come in the later stage, maybe in the last. And while giving answers, always give examples that in support of your answers. That will make your answer much more impressive. And then there is a controversial question, tricky question. You always give both the sides, pros and cons, and try to be on the right side of the law and right side of the government. Do not give revolutionary answers. So things like, for example, Central Vista or Article 370, which are tricky questions, reservation. So always give pros and cons, but if they ask your opinion, then you give the official version. And then, of course, your hobbies are important. So you have to the debates and public speaking and weightlifting and karate and traveling, prepare well. And for example, you must prepare where you have traveled the last and anything about that place. Prepare very well on that. And then your accountancy, management, and the corporate laws. So one thing which immediately will come to my mind is the role played by SEBI, role played by ICSI, role played by Reserve Bank of India, role played by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs in terms of corporate governance. That is definitely likely to be a question. And then nowadays, we are talking about the scams which are happening. So ICICI, Satyam scam, and the 2G scam, and Punjab National Bank scam. So have an understanding about that also. And then the clause 149 of the SEBI. So these are some of the important things. Corporate law, since you are, and the amendments made in the company's law. Then talk about the corporate social responsibility, definitely would be there. Tax also is an area of your this. So naturally, direct, indirect taxes, and GST, and demonetization, all things connected with economy and the accounting, everything. And then, of course, lot many questions were asked to you, and bilateral trade with UAE, and then other things also regarding e-commerce. So you were able to come out with satisfactory answer. I will not going to talk about it, about the migration from Kerala and the industries and the nurses. So that you were able to absolutely come out well. Just one or two things which I will, before I part, I'm going to say that these are some of the areas where you should prepare, even though your emphasis may be on IFS, but they may ask questions on other services also, and IAS being one of them. So understand that how district administration works. What is the revenue hierarchy? What is the role of collector? Panchayati Raj institutions, how far they have been successful. What are the functions of the Panchayati Raj institution, the three-tier institution, 73rd, 74th Amendment. Read the constitution article by article. Read the criminal procedure code, the sections relevant to the collector or the executive magistrates. Read the disaster management, how it is done, the COVID-19. And question may be asked, if you look back, don't you think that the migrants which were subjected to such problem, they had to travel from Kerala to Bihar, it could have been tackled differently? Do you think it was right to give the vaccines all over the world, whether one should have looked into our own country, our own requirement, and so on? So such kind of questions may come also. Then, of course, public policies. So public policy, you should definitely look into the public policies meant for the women, for children, for senior citizens, scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and so on. And what are the laws protecting that? So even though you have your Indian police service, you have given as the number third preference. So certain question may definitely be coming, because hypothetical question, if you are the superintendent of police, how will you tackle? And some questions sometimes come, if you are posted back in your own district, supposing you do not get IFS, you get IAS, you are posted in Kottayam, what are the problems that you feel that you will like to tackle? So such kind of things will also come. So you have sufficient time, you are otherwise very good in terms of knowledge, everything. It would be better if you wear a suit.
Yes,
that would be better. It will be more presentable. Okay. And will you be sporting a beard like this?
So
or
that's a
trimming?
question I've been asking.
So in case you are very fond of sporting a beard, well, you should trim your beard adequately.
So, but I wouldn't want to take a risk. So
yeah.
if clean
So
shaven is the best.
normally my suggestion is
There is no need to have a clean shave.
Beard is fine.
Beard is okay.
But then, yeah, but beard may be, but your photograph, of course, they will like to match, because
Yeah,
the chairman
my
will
photograph.
immediately pick up the photograph and will say, "Are you this?" So you will have to say, "Yes, I am this." So if you want, you can trim your beard to this extent. It is totally your wish, but there's nothing specific about it. If you want to sport a beard, it is perfectly fine. Except that sometimes what happens, if there are too many gray hair in the beard, then it leads to problem. Unnecessarily giving an impression
Of age.
yeah, of age. So that's the only thing. But otherwise, it's fine. You are absolutely good. And in terms of, as I said, knowledge, you are very good. In terms of your speaking skills, your intonation, your loudness, your modulation, your delivery, your punctuation, your structuring of sentences, choice of words, everything is fine. There's nothing required in that. Your eye contact with the member and also scanning the board, you were able to do that. So it's all absolutely fine. Do you have any questions?
Yes, sir. One question, and also based on the question sir asked me, communal issues. I mean, how best to tackle it? As in, what is the reasons for it when you give? How do you?
For example, which
For
communal?
example, like sir asked me the communal issues in Kerala. So what was? I felt like I missed the objective of that question.
No, there's no objective, and it's a factual question. So answer lies in the that you go and read on this.
Okay.
Read some critical articles.
See, essentially, you have to be on the right side of law.
Law, yeah,
You can't take any other
Can't
way.
take any other.
You say that I am the law book, whatever it prescribes, it is my job to maintain law and order. I, along with my other officer, the superintendent of police, we will make sure that the law and order is maintained, for which if I have to make preventive arrest, if I have to impose 144, all those things will be resorted to. But communal, in any case, you have to remain totally rational, secular and ethical. So there is no other option available to you. You have to be like that.
Perhaps what you wanted to ask, what was the reasons for Genesis? And
That's what I told him.
So,
That-
from Kerala, as I also mentioned, that the three communities had been staying together for thousands of years.
Right.
So, you can say that in the present value, everything is so charged, especially exposure to social media. So everyone has become very opinionated,
Yeah.
and even those minor whatever clashes or something is so over-reported that everyone thinks that there's something like really big going on. But it is exactly not on the same. But at the same time, if these things happen, it is the duty of the officers who are there or the government of the day that they maintain that everyone is taken to task. Whatever the differences, okay, those differences have to be ironed out through dialogue. Anyone taking law and order into their hand should be treated as such and dealt accordingly.
Understood. That was helpful.
No, let me clarify a bit that basically my question was intended at why these problems are arising now. So you need to collect facts as to and this is basically a factual analytical question. Don't form your own opinion till you have read enough and critical commentaries on that. And thereafter, you can just leave it open that these probably appear to be the reasons. And if they insist on your opinion, then you could say something very objective. And of course, if it comes to your duties as an IPS officer, then that has been explained to you how to tackle it.
Basically, your questions which are likely to be asked is hypothetical situations in which a civil servant may be asked. And there, you have to understand that for solving any such law and order situation, you have to carry out a root cause analysis. So that root cause analysis, from where it is emanating, that problem. So naturally, the first step will be to have a reconciliation, call the prominent leaders of different communities, different religions, and try to sit with them and sort it out. But if it does not happen, then you have to establish law and order. Because if you are weak in that, no government would like that a law and order situation erupts. The first priority is peace and security for the citizens. You cannot take sides, you have to be rational, you have to be secular. Okay? So root cause analysis and then action.
Thanks a lot, sir. This was
All
a
the
privilege
best.
and a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your guidance.
All
You will do very well.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All the best for your success.
Thank you.
Unacademy. Let's crack it.